So I get asked this question a lot, and I thought to myself, well, do you know what? I'm just going to make a video about it, right? Because at the end of the day, I'm sure you've got plenty of questions, and I've got loads of answers. If you, at any point, have ever thought to yourself, or ever even just wondered, even just a little bit, how does that work? Whether it be video games, your computer, your wireless earphones, GPS, Google Maps, the internet, AI, self-driving cars, and the list goes on. But you get the point, right? If you've ever wondered to yourself, how does it do that? And it doesn't matter what it is, and you've been curious enough to wonder to yourself, then you've got it. You are wired already to understand coding. So the simple answer is, should I learn to code? Yeah. So in this video, we're going to be talking about various topics, but we're not going to be talking exactly how to code and the best ways to code, but we're going to be talking about the things all around code that might help you make a better decision into whether you should learn how to code and whether it would be a great use of your time, whether it would fit into your life and your career and your goals and your life goals. So we're going to explore several different options, such as like working conditions, salary, how to get started, and just some of my own little pro tips at the end of the video. So stick around and hopefully you're going to learn something. So I'm just going to start off with a really easy one. When I say a really easy one, this is more like a really basic one, but I think it's something that everyone should know. But what is code and where does it live? In a nutshell, code are sets of instructions and they simply tell something what to do, and that something could be anything. It can be a phone, it can be a Nintendo Switch, it can be your computer, it can be your microphone, it could literally be anything, but effectively it is just a set of instructions. Now, in terms of where code lives, it can live anywhere. These days, code lives in the weirdest of places as long as it is an electronic device and has the ability to compute. That means it has the ability to process data. Then it usually will have the ability to run code. And this will run an instruction which will effectively tell it what to do. So let me give you an example. Here I have a Nintendo Switch Pro controller, and as you can see, there are plenty of buttons on it. It does lots of different things. It's quite cool. It's my favorite console. And inside this controller are microprocessors, and these microprocessors are small little computing devices that are effectively waiting for something to happen so it can run the code that it needs to run to instruct the Nintendo Switch that something had happened. For example, I'm going to move this around. When I'm moving this around, there is code executing inside the controller that is reading the position of the stick, and then it's sending it on to the Nintendo Switch to be received and then be translated to an in-game action. That was just a really small example, right? Small example. Very, very small example. But if I were to show you my phone here, I just want you to take the example that I just gave you of a set of instructions running when something happens, and I want you to multiply this billions and billions and billions of times. And when you get to this level of complexity, you end up with things that are capable as this. Let's get on to the thing that we all want to hear about: money. I'm just going to jump straight in here and I'm not going to mess about. But as a developer in the year 2023, you are earning the big bucks. There's no two ways about it. And the reason for this is everywhere you look, in every single industry, nearly every single industry, coders are needed. They're needed for everything. They're needed to drive processes. They're needed to build websites, apps, services, to automate things, to progress the company and make it more efficient. Developers / coders are needed in nearly every part of any industry today. I can't really think of any particular industry that doesn't need coders. Maybe you know, comment down below. I'd love to know, but please do keep that in mind. No matter what industry you are working in today, coders are needed, and this is why the demand for coders is so great. And of course, depending on how you look at that, this affects your salary, because there are not enough coders. They're just not enough of them. We need more of them, and because of this lack of availability of coders, this naturally drives the salary higher, because there's less of you to go around. And what you'll often find is companies are competing for you, and they will just keep offering you higher salaries, better pay, better working conditions, great perks. And trust me, there are some brilliant perks to be had depending on the industry that you're working in. So I would keep this in mind when you're considering such a career move to jumping on the coding bandwagon, because money plays a big factor in it. It plays a big factor in all our lives, and it can influence your decisions for various things in the future, like buying a house, having children, etc., etc. So money is important. Money talks, right? So if you are starting out in the United States as a junior developer, or a student developer, or someone that is doing an apprenticeship of some sort, your average median salary is, wait for it, a whopping eye-watering $100,000. You read that right, $100,000. It's some serious moolah. It's absolutely phenomenal where the industry has come. And I just want to say, when I started out as a junior developer, and that was after university, after dropping a lot of money on a degree, my starting salary was £18,000, which today is roughly equal to about $23,000. And that was a long time ago, right? And when I say a long time ago, it's probably not even that long ago. But that shows us where we've come from then to now. And just to give you an idea of some different roles and their salaries, we've got designers at 126k, front-end developers at 133k, game developers starting at around 140, DevOps specialists 150k, back-end developers 150k, blockchain developers 177k, and engineering managers around 180k. For those of you that want to know or would like to read a little bit more about this data has come from the Stack Overflow 2022 Developer Survey, and I highly recommend you go and check this out yourself. And for those of you that noticed, this is the 2022 survey, not the 2023 survey. I would suggest that you go and check out the 2023 survey just to see how things have changed in 1 year. I mean, just looking at their numbers, it is insane. I mean, this is a no-brainer, and these sort of numbers could sway you straight away into making the decision whether you become a coder now or never, to put it frankly. So this is just a idea of the sort of money that you would earn as a developer, and it can vary. It can vary. It depends where you live. It depends where you live in the world. It depends who you go and work for. It depends on what other perks you get, whether you get stock or you get a great pension or you get really good perks. So just to reiterate, it is just the median amount. It's just the average. But these numbers are not far off what I've been seeing in the industry as well. With that out of the way, let's talk about working conditions. First and foremost, most companies will allow you to work from home maybe all of the time. If there's some sort of like corporate policy going on, then they might ask you to come into the office 2 to 3 days a week, but once you get to know people, they will reduce that to however much you want it to be, maybe once a week or even not at all. Perks within IT companies as well, whether it be big or small, generally, I think, and from what I've seen, are probably some of the best in the industry. Some of the perks you get range from the general things like bonus payments and freebies. It can be stock, it can be cash bonuses, it can be extra holidays, it can be you get your birthday off. I've seen that in a few companies. I've seen all sorts, even to free flights and holidays as well. I mean, it really does vary, but one thing I will say for sure is I've always noticed engineering teams getting very, very, very good perks and pay in this day and age, because what is understood is that companies understand the value of IT teams and keeping their staff as opposed to having to look for another one. Because if they have to fire someone, for example, and they need to look for another one, they often will end up in some sort of bidding war to get the best developer or something along them lines. And that is because developers are in demand and there's not enough of them going around. So what generally has to happen is companies have to fight to hire a developer, and one of the best ways that they can swing a developer around to come into work for them is by offering great perks. So this is why you generally see great perks in the coding and IT industry in general. I mean, I had to put this in here, and let me tell you why. When I was a coder, and I've been coding since I was like, I don't know, 12, 13, it was a very different world back then. Coding was brand new on the scene. It wasn't really taught in universities or schools. You had to be sort of like, you had to really scrounge around the internet and just look for bits of information to learn how to code. It was really hard. It was really hard. It's not like today. Today it's the complete opposite. But then it was really hard. And when I used to tell people, oh, I like programming, that you'd just be met with like, okay, that's weird. Why don't you do something normal, like be a mechanic or be this or be that? Normal. But as time went on, the power of code starts to make its way into the hands of everyday people via mobile phones, the internet, email, the World Wide Web, YouTube, influencers, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Without really saying anything, people started to understand where coders fit in their life. They realized that without coders, they weren't going to get this great technology that is, without question, improved their life today. So now I've gone from people looking at me weird and saying, oh, you're just a nerd, to looking at me and wanting to talk about their ideas, hoping that you'll make their ideas come to life because they know that you hold the key to making their idea come to life. The amount of times this has happened to me, I'll be out with friends and someone will ask me, well, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I'm a coder, I'm a programmer, I build apps. And the first thing they do is they just ask you questions. They want to know more about what you do, about your industry. What sort of apps do you build? They've got a genuine interest, but 20 years ago, this was not the case. So things have really changed. And generally, and I'm not going to lie, but when you tell people you're an app developer or you tell them who you've worked for, you're a bit of a rock star. Whether it's for better or for worse, they want to know more about you. So it does change your social standing, and it's worth mentioning. So you got this far. I congratulate you. And thanks for sticking around. So I wouldn't let you get this far in the video without giving you some pro tips from my own career. These are tips that I would pass on to absolutely anyone. And this is because in my whole time being a coder, which has been frustrating at the best of times, these are a few of the best tips that I would give anyone, and I will explain why. So number one, write tests. Now this is the bane of any developer's life, and if you're a developer and you're watching this, you know what I'm talking about. There is no developer that enjoys writing tests, but the purpose of a test is to ensure that the instruction that you wrote does what it says on the tin. Now, testing one piece of code on its own isn't so great, right? It's pretty useless, but it does do the assertion, and that's what we want. We want to make sure it's doing what it says on the tin. However, when you start writing more and more and more tests, and this becomes 10 tests, and this becomes 20, 30, 50, 100 tests, all of a sudden you've got this suite, you've got this army of tests that is ensuring that your app or whatever it is you're building, as it becomes more and more complex, is still doing what it's supposed to do. And trust me, the amount of times I've changed a bit of code somewhere and I've broken something somewhere else in the code that I never would have noticed if it wasn't for them tests running. So this is why you should write tests, because it will save you a lot of heartache and effort in the future. Do not repeat yourself. Don't repeat your code. If you find yourself writing some code that does a particular thing and then you write that same code again, even if it's just a little bit different, but you write the same code again somewhere else, then you did something wrong. And what you need to do is you need to rewrite your code so it uses the same piece of code that you've written already. Even if you have to change that initial piece of code that you wrote, do not repeat your code, because there's nothing worse than looking in the wrong place for your code, and it is an absolute nightmare, only to find out it was the other piece of code that is written the exactly same way, that does exactly the same thing. So there's nothing more frustrating than finding that out. And this is just about code hygiene. It's keeping your code clean, and not only that, but it's keeping your code organized just for yourself, even, right? Just for yourself. So don't repeat yourself. If you find yourself using the same code again and again, shove it in a utilities file and use that code again and again. Hot on the back of that one. Number 3, keep it simple. I cannot stress this enough. Please keep your code simple. If you even have the slightest inkling that your code is becoming too complex, then stop right there, and please do not continue any further. Do not make code more complex than it has to be, because it only makes your job harder in the long run, and trust me, it will happen. This tends to be a common practice amongst talented developers, admittedly. This is something that happens a lot, and I see it a lot as well. Only for me or someone else to have to come along and fix it afterwards because it was too complex and it didn't need to be. And always what happens is we find ourselves having to reduce the complexity to get it working again. And it's always the way. It just ends up in wasted time and effort and money. And this is not how we want to live our lives, right? If you are developing a piece of code and you either want to see, just out of curiosity, if you can make it cleverer or more complex, then just stop. There's no need for it at all. You'll earn more respect from other developers by showing clean, clear, simple, concise code instead of overcomplicating something which will ultimately make them more frustrated. Number 4, if you are passionate about something, show your passion. Do not allow other people, and this is very common in the developer community, but do not allow other people to come in with their opinions and say what they think is right. The matter of fact is, with code and the way code is and the way you write code, there's 1,000 ways to say hello world. So if one person comes in and says, oh, but I think it should go that way, but you believes it should go that way. Ultimately, if you reach the end goal and the result is the same, then you were both right. The reason I put this point in here about showing your passion is not just for other developers, but it's generally for the higher up developers and the management to see this. Because as a engineering manager myself, whenever I'm looking for people with talent, I always look for passion. I'm always monitoring how passionate someone is about their subject matter. And if they are passionate about what they do and they care, then in my world, these are candidates to be promoted, to get pay rises, etc. Because you know that they care about their craft. And that means a lot in a world where people just want to write code for money, and the results are never very good because you get caught out. So if you're passionate about code, if you're passionate about technology or a type of coding, or a particular methodology, then show your passion. Nothing bad can come from it. And my fifth and final pro tip would be, if you are just starting out, or even if you are a seasoned developer or you're a developer with a lot of experience, the best way to hone your craft and to get better at something without having to watch hours and hours of YouTube is simply start and maintain a small project of your own. And this can be anything. It can be a website, it can be an app, it can be a game, it can be literally anything. All these things I just mentioned are free and cost nothing to get started. So I would highly recommend, if you are serious about this and you really want to be the best of the best thing you can do is simply start a small project of your own and maintain it, because this is how you will learn the tricks of the trade. This is how you'll learn your craft. This is how you learn all the little tricks as well that other developers might not know. And I think it's great, because at the end of it all, you've got loads more experience. But not only that, but you've got your own product at the end of it that you can show to people, that you can say, I built that. And whenever you go for an employment interview or anything along them lines, and you show that you've built these things yourself, they are always impressed. I guarantee it. And they want to know more about it. And that's talking from personal experience. I hope this has helped you. Should you learn to code? I hope the answer was yes. If the answer has been no, then I hope you've learned something from this video anyway, and I hope that this video might have changed your mind. I don't know, but let me know what you think in the comments down below. Even if you've got your own advice, let's start a thread below, because I would love to hear your feedback as well. And please subscribe and like for more. Just to help you get started as well, I will leave some links down below, so check it out in the description. Thank you.